Hey everyone, it's Grant Winsauer and
Jack Rody.
back here on the Bear Clawcast, and we have got a long episode for you. So I would recommend maybe grabbing some popcorn for today if you guys if you guys would like to have a snack while you enjoy this. Um, Today we're gonna be giving you our preview episode for the second matchup for the Bears versus Vikings. Give you a deep dive into the Bears' short list of candidates for their next head coach. And even though we usually don't talk about college football, we will talk about Bill Belichick accepting the UNC head coaching job instead of an NFL coaching job. But before we get into that, how has your week been, Jack? I know it's been busy for you with preparing for finals, but how has your week been?
Yeah, for sure. Being busy is a part of life, but it's been a good week. Can't complain too much. How about you, Grant? Anything going on of
No,
interesting note?
no, no. My sister, she was finished with her finals Wednesday, so she came home last night, uh, and she's here today. So we're the whole family's back together for Christmas break.
Very nice.
Um, so let's get into it. The Bears take on the Vikings Monday night for the second time this season, and everyone knows that the last time they played each other, they went into overtime and lost 30-27. Well, that was a heartbreaking loss. It was also Caleb Williams' best game as a pro against a very good defense. Williams threw for 340 yards and two passing touchdowns against a defense that is well known for getting to the quarterback. It will be interesting to see if the Bears offense can repeat that with uh, Thomas Brown now on the sideline compared to the booth. I know I've said that multiple times in the last couple of weeks, but being on the sidelines or being on the booth is uh, two different things. So what we do have going for us is the fact that Williams is very good at throwing against the blitz. However, my biggest concern is the fact that Eric Washington is calling the defense now. And let's not forget that our defense gave up 38 to a depleted 49ers offense. What are your thoughts on that, Jack? Uh, and what are you expecting on Monday?
Yeah, I'm not going in with too much optimism. I can't lie.
I don't think any Bears fans are.
Despite how great of a game Caleb had last time, I'd love to see the offense get going in the first half, as I think all Bears fans would. The defense definitely does scare me. I think it's harder to play defense when you're not really playing for much, and the Bears obviously don't have much to play for right now. And I think that I don't know if you got a chance to watch any of last night's game, but the 49ers offense looked pretty terrible, and they looked
Yes,
like
I
world
did.
beaters against us the week before. So I'm a little bit worried that Sunday could get out of hand, but hopefully, as all Bear fans are just looking for right now, Caleb Williams continues to improve and that we get some sort of bright spot from this game.
And not to not that I want to correct you, but the game's on Monday, actually.
My apologies.
Um, but so let us be clear: we don't think the Bears will win, sadly. But if we can get a similar performance from Williams, then we should be happy because that means that we have truly found our QB. And with how he's been playing lately, besides last week, it is pretty evident that we have finally found our QB. Now we just need to find the coach. I can't believe that we don't do the right thing and get the coach and the quarterback at the same time. Now, I we will get into the short list of candidates, and I do believe that we will get the right coach this time, or at least we're both crossing our fingers, and I'm pretty sure all Bears fans are crossing their fingers. But what are your thoughts on the last couple points that we just talked about?
Yeah, I just one more thing I wanted to bring up on the Vikings game. I'll be curious to see how Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson perform this game. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
they're coming off that crazy combined 5 touchdown game last week against the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
The Jalen Johnson specifically did a really good job of shutting down Justin Jefferson the last time they played, and it was more of a
That's
T.J.
true.
Hawkinson and Jordan Addison game. So I'll be curious to see if the Vikings switch anything up with how they look to attack this Bears defense.
That's a great point. The last time didn't they hold him to like 20 yards or something
Yeah,
like
it was
that?
like it was something like that. Very very
And
minimal amount
weren't
of
they
yards.
20 yards like in the fourth quarter, like in the very late part of the game?
I believe so.
I want to say that's when it happened, but but Jalen Johnson has proved that he is a lockdown corner, and thank God that we locked him down to a contract when we did. Because personally, if we waited till now, or could we have waited till now to do
I don't
that?
think so. No, I think we would have had
Well,
to tag him and then
I
yeah.
yeah,
But
but
I totally agree.
yeah, I'm pretty sure Bears fans would all agree. But so now we're gonna get into the short list of uh, head coaching candidates that they will um, interview in the next couple. Well, in about a month, not in the next couple weeks. I wish they could, but so the Bears have a short list of 4 coaches that they are interested in and going to talk to about um, becoming the next head coach, and we're going to talk about all of them today. And even though we think this list will grow, based on reports that we have both seen, it seems like it will come down to 2 of their top choices. And we'll get into the top 2 choices later, but the 4 coaches that they're interested in right now are Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Joe Brady, and Brian Flores. Before we before we get into the deep dive on those candidates, though, it's important for us to mention that the Bears have given Kevin Warren the green light to spend on the head coach, and I am hoping that he does it right this time. I'm sure all Bears fans are. But let's start with Brian Flores. Flores is currently the DC of the Minnesota Vikings, so he definitely would know how to beat the NFC North teams. He's the leader of men type. He's been a head coach before. However, we have some concerns that make us think he doesn't get considered as much as the other candidates. During his time as the Dolphins head coach, he had 4 different offensive coordinators, and he told Tua Tagovailoa that he was a bad quarterback. And we're worried if we hire him, he'd say the same thing about Caleb Williams. Um, so, I mean, what are your thoughts on Brian Flores, Jack? I'm pretty sure that out of this short list, he would probably be the last person that
Hmm.
we, or that you, at least you and me, would think would be hired. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean Brian Flores obviously has put on a clinic this year as far as how to scheme up a defense for the Vikings. They've been
Mm-hmm.
off to a great start and really haven't slowed down very much. But obviously the big concern is what you were talking about. I think the last thing the Bears need is to bring someone in who would create any type of locker room issues. And obviously, this would be something that's discussed in meetings with Flores, what his opinions are on Caleb Williams.
Yes,
And I think
that's good.
that's probably like the get in the door answer. Like, if you don't think
Biggest
Caleb's
thing.
the quarterback of the future, the Bears aren't going to hire you. So I think that would probably be ironed out before he would be eventually hired. But we're going to talk about a couple names coming up here that I think just might be a little bit better as an option.
Yes. We're starting with the less, we're going from the coaches that we don't think they'll hire to the candidates that we do think they'll hire based on this short list, to clarify how this goes. So next, let's talk about Joe Brady. Brady is currently the OC for the Buffalo Bills. Brady was the QB coach for the Bills until Ken Dorsey was fired after a 5-5 start, and uh, Joe Brady was named interim head or interim OC. But then, they started to pick up a balanced running and passing attack with Joe Brady and have gone 15-5 ever since Brady has taken over play calling. Um, Now, the thing that I have concerns with um, Brady is how much of his success is because of him, or is it all because of Josh Allen? Now, I do believe that some of the success is because of him, but you know, when you have probably the front runner for MVP right now as your quarterback, you don't really have to do that much when calling an offense. Um, but what are your thoughts on Joe Brady, Jack?
Yeah, I think Joe Brady's a classic case of like the chicken and the egg, which came first. His two most successful seasons calling plays have been in 2019 with Joe Burrow at quarterback for LSU, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously he had a record breaking college season, and now this year calling plays for Josh Allen. So what you're saying does make some sense. Like, is his success because of this great quarterback play, or are these great quarterbacks having more success because he's calling great plays? It's something the Bears are going to have to figure out for themselves, whether they think one or the other is going on. But I think just the fact that Joe Brady's been around those successful offenses and knows what it looks like to have success, and the fact that the Bills have improved in the last year plus since he took over play calling, I would not be worried with the Joe Brady hire. I would just be more concerned with how he feels out his staff, just because he hasn't I mean, I know he's been with Carolina and the Bills now, but hasn't been in the NFL for too long. So I don't know what his connections are.
Yeah, that's a very good concern to have. I can get behind you on those concerns. So yeah. So next we're going to talk about Ben Johnson, and we talked about him plenty, but Ben Johnson. I mean, he he has been play caller for the Lions for the last 3 years and has done a terrific job with them, leading them to the number one scoring offense. Now there are still a few concerns that we have. One, can he command a locker room? And two, can he succeed without his offensive line? Because even if you get the best offensive lineman available in free agency and the draft, uh, it won't be the same as the Lions. But before we get into something else about the top two head coaching options, what are your thoughts on that, Jack? Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be concerns no matter who we hire, but I think Ben Johnson is by far the not maybe not the safest, but the most logical choice to become the new head coach of the Bears. If they were to
mhm.
pick anybody they had with no like competition or having to negotiate contracts, I think they would pick Ben Johnson. So I'm curious to see. We're going to go into a little bit of a mock off season, so I think that'll be interesting to discuss what that would look like if he took over.
Yes, and actually, before we get into those mock off seasons, I would actually like to give a shout out to the guy that actually made both of these. His handle on Twitter is at Hoodie Brisker because I came across a mock off season where we hire Mike Vrabel, and I reached out to him on Twitter. I'm like, hey man, look, I do a podcast about Bears. It's looking like the two uh, option. It's looking like it's going to be a two-man race for the Bears head coaching job between Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson. I haven't been able to find a mock off season where they go into who would be on Ben Johnson's staff. Could you do it for me? And I didn't expect him to answer, but he did, and he pulled through for me. So I want to thank him so much, and let's get into that. So Johnson's staff could look something like you know the Lions have um, Mark Brunell as their quarterbacks coach, but I think he would come with Johnson as OC. Now, Johnson has made it clear that if he were to be a head coach, um, Johnson would be the play caller. So really, we wouldn't have to worry about a quarterbacks coach calling plays for the first time, which happened with Luke Getzey. So that was a little concerning, but that wouldn't be a worry with Johnson. His DC is currently the the defensive run game coordinator for um, um,
Tampa
the
Bay Buccaneers, right? Yep.
Buccaneers. Casey Rogers. I don't really know much about him. I just copied the list that the tweet had. So the re-signings that he mentioned were uh, Matt Pryor, Keenan Allen, and Coleman Shelton. To probably like 2 year deals for all of them. But like the only expensive one would be Keenan Allen, I would guess. But going into free agency, he uh, he predicted that the Bears would sign Trey Smith to a 4 year deal, Ryan Ryan Kelly to a 3 year deal, Evan Brown to a 2 year deal, Josh Reynolds to a 1 year deal, and or Marcus Mariota to a 1 year deal, and Edge Charles
Omenahu.
Menahu. Thank you, Jack. I don't. I can't. I would not be able to pronounce that.
Don't
And
worry, I
then
gotcha.
for the draft, he predicted that the Bears would have pick 5 and pick Abdul Carter, edge out of Penn State, and then round 2, pick 3, Walter Nolan, DT, I think out of Old Miss, and then round 2, pick 5, Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama, and then I really like this pick actually. Round 3, pick 5, Cat Scadaboo. I've heard a lot of good things about him. And round 5, pick 5, safety Rod Moore out of Michigan, I believe.
Yeah, for some reason I was thinking like I know you don't have him listed on the script, but for some reason his name just sounds like a Michigan player. I don't know why, but that was
No,
his
I
goal.
think it's Michigan. Now it's important to note real quick. This is only a 5 round mock because if you go to pff.com, I think I think you have to pay money now to be able to unlock the whole like the whole 7 rounds thing. And I mean I don't understand why you have to do that. That's kind of weird, but you know everything's about making money now. So I mean, our offense would look like, QB would be Caleb Williams. We'd have a combination of DeAndre Swift and Scadaboo as our running backs. Wide receivers, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Dunze. Tight end would be Cole Kmet. Um, Left tackle would be Braxton Jones. Left guard would be Tyler Booker. Center would be Ryan Kelly. Right guard would be Trey Smith, and right tackle would be Darnell Wright. Our defense would look like Abdul Carter would be left end. Javon Dexter would be DT, along with Walter Nolan. Right end would be Montez Sweat. We have TJ Edwards at outside linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds at middle linebacker. Um, uh, Cornerbacks would be Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, and Tyreek Stevenson or Terrell Smith. But actually, based on how he's performed,
It's
I
gonna be terrible.
personally,
It's gonna be Smith.
I'd actually prefer Terrell Smith right now. But before we get into Mike Vrabel, what would you be happy with this, mock off season? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, for sure. A lot to unpack here. I'm kind of just gonna go in order of how he laid it
Sure,
out. So,
sure. Bottom got
re-signings,
our water.
re-signings, not much to comment on, to be honest with you. I do love how they attack free agency in this potential mock off season. The weakest part of our offense, and honestly, our whole team, is the interior offensive line. I think we pretty much need a sweeping overhaul there, and signing 2 offensive guards and a center in free agency would obviously be ideal. Uh, as far as the draft goes, Abdul Carter at 5, I love that pick. I don't know if anyone's listening to this has watched a lot of Penn State this year football, but he has been an absolute beast, and I would be
Mm-hmm.
very happy with him at number 5. Tyler Booker, I've had a chance to watch some Alabama too this year. He's a solid prospect. I think it'd be great if we could get him in the second round. I don't think he ends up going in the first round. I don't think there's any interior
And
offensive linemen
honestly,
who are really
with how
pushing that.
early
But
our draft picks are in the rounds, I mean, I'm pretty sure he would last that long.
yeah,
I mean,
and then yeah, but
yeah,
Scadaboo has been. I mean, anyone who watched Arizona State last Saturday, oh my god, like that guy is a tank. So
yeah.
obviously
Didn't he do the
providing a little
Heisman
bit more.
pose last week, or was
Yeah,
that a couple of weeks ago?
that was last week. Yeah, but he definitely provides. I think him and Swift complement each other very well. Scadaboo is much more of a north-south runner and a physical guy, so I think he would be utilized a lot more between the tackles and keep Swift on those outside zone runs. Uh, Not too much else I have to comment on, but I think that would honestly be a very successful offseason. Obviously, we saw, based on the starting lineups, that entire interior is reworked, like I was talking about. And I think if we were able to do that, I don't think we need to worry about Braxton Jones at tackle as much, because I think if you improve the pieces around him, he will also improve when there's a little bit less pressure on him. So I
Sure,
think,
sure.
like, in totality, that's a very good offseason plan. And shout out Hoodie Brisker for giving us that.
Yeah. But honestly, let me say this about his prediction for Ben Johnson's offseason before we get into Mike Vrabel, because I personally thought that with how dominant the offensive line is for Detroit, if we were to be able to convince Ben Johnson to come here. I'm surprised that he didn't take Will Campbell or
Well,
uh,
I think if we were picking at 5, that would definitely require a trade down. Like I think you can get Campbell anywhere from like 8 until about like 15 pretty comfortably.
you might be right. But let's get into Mike Vrabel. Vrabel's the most experienced on this list with a 54-45 record as a head coach. He's 2-3 in the playoffs. In 2018, his team allowed an average of 18.4 points per game and scored 19.4 per game. In 2019, his team allowed 20.4 points a game, while the offense scored 25.1 points per game. In 2020, his team allowed 26.8, while his team scored 30.7. In 2021, his team allowed 20.6, while his team scored 24.6. In 2022, his team allowed 19.7, while averaging a score of 17.5 points per game. In 2023, his team allowed 20.4 points per game, while scoring 17.9 points per game. Those are some pretty good stats, but in the last couple years, his offensive line kind of, you know, took a took a couple hits there. Obviously, you can see with the points that they scored going down pretty significantly. There are some good things about hiring Mike Vrabel over anyone else. For example, Kevin Byard knows his defense and could help everyone on the team get up to speed quicker. I you know I found it. Or well, we'll get into the mock off season in a minute. But what are your thoughts about how, Mike Vrabel being on their list, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you look at those stats, you can see his defense was pretty consistently towards the top of the league. I mean, anytime you can give up around 20 points per game, that's always a good thing. Uh, I wouldn't read too much into the offensive decline in the later years of his tenure in Tennessee. I think that their management really mishandled
Mm-hmm.
trading away A.J. Brown and then selecting Traylon Burks, as well as Ryan Tannehill battling injuries his last couple of years of Rabel's tenure. as well as Derrick Henry went down, and I believe 2022 for about 8 games. So he struggled with a lot of inconsistency and talent on the offense. They never really had an elite playmaker outside of Derrick Henry, and I think he kind of just rode Henry, and it worked for him. But a lot of it would depend, obviously, on the staff he hires. I think, uh, obviously, he's not going to have the same OC he had originally in Tennessee. Arthur Smith is already the offensive coordinator for the Steelers and doing quite well. So I'll be interested to see once we get into this mock-off season who the rumors are for him to fill out his staff as well as the player personnel.
Yeah, and before we get into the mock off season, um, you know, I heard that he was fired because of front office differences, not because he was a bad coach or anything like that. I think it was more front office differences than anything else. But that could also be a rumor. I'm not sure. But for this for this mock off season, he thinks that Vrabel would bring on Mike LaFleur as his OC and Shane Bowen as his DC. I mean, Mike LaFleur is the current offensive coordinator for the Rams, and I mean,
When they're healthy, they're hard to stop.
it's just I don't think that for I don't think you can really base how good the he is as an offensive coordinator this year because of the fact that Matthew
McVay, Colin,
Stafford
yeah.
Matthew Stafford is also really old and Sean McVay does call the plays, so that's something to consider. But for let's get into the mock off season. For re-signings, he thinks we'd re-sign Matt Pryor, Coleman Shelton, and Keenan Allen. Same as the one before. But the free agent signings for Vrabel are different, which we'll get into right now. So he thinks we would sign Will Hernandez to a 4-year deal. He plays a guard, I think. He thinks that they would sign Drew Dahlman to a 3-year deal, and he does play center, so we desperately need a center. So I could get behind that as well. And then he thinks that we would sign Cam Robinson to a 4-year deal, and then defensive end Yetter Gross Matos to a 2-year deal. What are your thoughts on the earliest parts of that free
Yeah,
agency and re-signings?
yeah. So I mean, obviously the re-signings are the same as the last mock, so I
Sure.
won't touch on that too much. But Cam Robinson would definitely be an interesting name to bring in at tackle. Obviously, he has switched teams mid-year to the Vikings and taken over
Mm-hmm.
that spot for Christian Darrisaw, who went down. We're gonna get into it in a
What
second
does
about
what position? Not what position. I'm sorry. I forgot. What injury does
Darrisaw.
Darisaw have?
I'm honestly not 100% sure. I know he's out for the year, so it's probably something
When
like
did
knee
that injury?
ligament.
I'm gonna look up when that injury happened.
Here, I can do it. I can do it real quick.
Okay, sure. Thanks. I want to say it happened pretty early in the
Yeah, it did because they made that trade very
and
early.
remember we talked about that trade because he was traded for like a 7th round draft pick or some crazy minimum amount, and I mean I can't believe that Pools
It
wouldn't pull the
was
trigger on that.
it was Thursday, October 24th,
So
and he has a
that was
torn
about 2 months
ACL.
ago,
Yeah, torn ACL and MCL.
and I would ooh. Do you think he'd be ready for training camp if it's both of those?
I think start of the year would definitely be a reasonable timetable for him to return. ACL and MCL injuries uh, have really the recovery time on those has really changed within the last couple of years. Like it was, I mean, Adrian Peterson, I know he's a different animal, but like he tore his ACL, I want to say, in like the last game of December, and then came back the next year to start the year. And we've seen a lot of guys. I mean, we saw Cam Akers come back from an Achilles in the same year, so I wouldn't put anything past anyone with modern medicine. So yeah, but
Yeah,
definitely
and
a
I mean, I hate to mention it, but what's his name? Aaron Rodgers. He thought that he could come back, but he ultimately didn't. But like,
mhm.
he tore his ACL on the third. Oh, Achilles.
Achilles.
I'm sorry. I get those. I think they're the same thing. I don't get why I think they're the same thing. But he tore his Achilles on the fourth play of the season when he last year when he joined the Jets, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm coming back for the playoffs and all that stuff." And when he said that, I'm like, "You tore your Achilles. That's like a year recovery time. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And I mean, ultimately, the Jets had nothing to play for because they had Zach Wilson as their backup. It's kind of stupid when sign or trade for Aaron Rodgers. You think that he's the greatest, and you don't think to, oh, what if he gets hurt? Let's sign a backup to a decent deal just in
Mhm.
case. Because Zach Wilson, terrible.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and he also predicted that with the Bears signing Cam Robinson, they would trade Braxton Jones for a fourth and a sixth. And based on his production, I think that's a pretty decent return. But that's just my opinion. And getting into the draft. In this one, he believes that the Bears will draft Will Campbell, uh, and then Walter Nolan is still in here, but he's earlier in the second round, and then for the other second round pick we have, he predicts that we would pick up Walter Nolan's teammate, Princely Lee. Well,
We'll just call him Princely last name for now. I'm not even going to attempt that
yeah,
one.
I'm not gonna attempt to read that. It's very complicated. But for round three, he thinks that we would pick up Quinshawn,
Quinshon Judkins.
and I'm not sure what position he plays.
He's a running
Honestly,
back for Ohio State.
oh, for some reason, I literally almost said I think he would be a safety. That just sounds like a safety name. And then round four, pick 15, Tate Rutledge. I think that's a center, but out of Georgia, I think. But I'm not exactly sure. In fact, let me look that
I
up
got it
real
real
quick.
quick. Yeah, offensive lineman from Georgia.
Okay,
Offensive guard.
guards can also play center. It's an interchangeable thing, really. Um, but so the offense would look like everything is basically the same for the positions or the skill positions being quarterback, running back, and tight end and all that stuff. So I'm not gonna say that, but offensive line would look like Cam Robinson at left tackle, Will Campbell at guard, which I actually do think that that's what he'll play in the NFL. Drew Dahlman at center, Will Hernandez at right guard, and Darnell right tackle. Um, you know, um, defense is mostly the same, except we'd have uh, Princely, whatever his last name is, at left end instead of
Carter.
Carter. Thank you. But let me ask you this, Jack, real quick. If if you had to choose between the each of these mock off seasons, which one would you choose?
Ben Johnson.
Yeah,
And I like the offseason signings for both, but I'm just a full on Ben Johnson camp guy. That's who I want them
we're
to hire. So
we all are, and honestly, it looks like it's going to be a two-man race between the two of them. Being Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel, because I mean, I don't think per se that Joe Brady or Brian Flores will come in and wow, Kevin Warren and um, Ryan Poles if he's still here, because there has actually been a little bit of questionable things surfacing about uh, him today. Like everyone warned him about signing Nate Davis to the contract that we signed him to, and you know he, uh, he was all in on Poles, or all in on Eberflus last off season, and wanted to give him one more year. But I mean, it's weird. So it's important to note that everything that we just talked about in terms of the mock off seasons and all that stuff. It's just a prediction. This is not us saying that this would be exactly what happens, but it's all about predictions at this point because the Bears aren't winning another game. I'll tell you that.
Probably not. And just one last time, shout out Hoodie Brisker for giving us
Yes,
those.
thank you,
Very much
thank you
appreciated.
so much, man. This is awesome. And honestly, if either of these, if either of these, mock off seasons are even remotely close to what we get when the off season gets here, I mean, I give you a round of applause for predicting it. Um, you know, and also you're probably wondering. Well, I mean, we have said it's probably going to be a two-man race for this head coach prediction. Also, I asked a credible source on Twitter if, based on this short list of candidates, they have already shown interest in. Does he think that the Bears will use a hiring committee? And his response was, "It feels like this is a cycle where Warren will lean on his connections, and he has plenty. The only way that a committee gets involved is if George insists." And I think he's right because the short list they already have, made is a mix of offensive minded coaches and defensive minded or coaches or and slash head coach experience candidates. If they can do that on their own, I don't think there's a reason for a hiring committee. What are your
Yeah, I think
thoughts?
that I just think a hiring committee at this point would be inefficient. Like you mentioned, we sitting here can put together a nice little short list of Bears coaching candidates. If the men who are in charge of leading our front office can't put together a list by themselves, I'd be a little worried. So I think
Yeah,
that everyone else do your job, get out of the way, and let Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren handle this one.
yeah, that's a great statement. So next, before I will admit, before we get into the Bill Belichick becoming head coach of the UNC, I came across an article about what NFL execs are hearing about Ryan Poles' job security. According to SportsMockery.com, Bears reporter Eric Lambert, and that's who I asked if they would use a hiring committee, and this is the same guy. He states that Poles' job security is something of interest to folks around the league, and the consensus is he will be safe. The only caveat that from those that he has chatted with is the Bears land on a head coach who has enough juice to bring a personnel man with him. That's a possibility that can't be dismissed. I mean, if you were paying attention to what Warren said, Poles appears to be in good standing for 2025, but I mean, I do agree that the coach has a right to bring a personnel man with him to be his GM, but that doesn't happen very often. So we'll see how that shapes out. But let me ask you, Jack. I mean, based on that little quote that I copied, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, could you
Yeah,
imagine it happening?
I mean, I think if Ben Johnson has somebody in Brad Holmes's front office over at Detroit that he is very fond of and thinks would be a good addition to the Bears front office. I definitely think that's something the Bears have to listen to. But uh, I don't think there's too much of a concern if I was Ryan Poles about that. I think he's got at least one more year, but there is increasing noise about it, so you can't totally ignore it. So it's definitely something to monitor as we get deeper into the offseason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now let's get into the most surprising news in the football world, and that is Bill Belichick becoming the next head coach of UNC. When it surfaced that he was in talks to become their next head coach, I thought that there is no way he wants to be he want to be the head coach of UNC because I mean he was at like what 320.
He's 14 wins short of Don Shula.
And I would want to beat that if you're that close. I mean, that's basically, depending on the team that you go to, that's basically one, well,
Probably 2 seasons.
2 years. That's 2 years. I can't say one because, there's no way that Dan Campbell is going to get fired.
Yeah, exactly.
He's at
The teams that are going to win 14 games next year all have their head coaches locked up already.
locked up for a while. Exactly. But but then I remembered that his dad was a coaching assistant at UNC when Bill was a kid, so it makes sense that he would want to go back there. It was first reported that his contract was a 3-year, $30 million deal, but then when UNC issued a press conference, it was announced that it was a 5-year deal, and I found out what it is. So that it basically is a 3-year deal. The 3 years are guaranteed, and then the final 2 years are non-guaranteed. So, I don't know. I mean, let's be real here. What's it? Bill Belichick is 72 years old. So if he were to hypothetically coach this whole contract, he'd be 77, 78 almost. I mean,
He still wouldn't be as old as our next president or the president we just had.
really? How?
Yeah. Biden's, I think, just
Oh,
turned like
I'm sorry.
81.
I thought you meant the president of the Bears. I'm like,
Oh, no. Like the country, like the president of the country.
okay. I'm like, really? Is Kevin Warren that old?
Yeah, no.
I don't think.
Keep going.
Yeah, but UNC got themselves one hell of a coach. But I will give the college kids that are either entering the transfer portal or planning on signing with UNC now that Bill Belichick is the head coach there. Get ready to go through hell at practice because it is going to be that. I mean, I believe that during the time that Belichick is head coach there, I mean, the kids that play at UNC are going to be the most NFL ready college kids because Bill Belichick said he's going to run it like a transitioning program into the NFL. I mean, but practice is going to be hell, so get ready for that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a little funny. North Carolina now, their last two head coaches, they got Mac Brown from Texas about 10 years too late. And now it seems like they got Bill Belichick about 10 years too late. So we'll see how it works out for him. I'm not going to, I mean, obviously, if I was a North Carolina fan, I'd be super happy about Bill Belichick coming to coach my team. But it's just, I mean, like you said, I was very shocked when I heard it, and I'm curious to see how it plays out. I think it'll be interesting to see whether Belichick reverts back to his New England form, where he's a little bit more harsh and quiet and reserved, or if he kind of takes on a little bit more of the personality he's let shine through since he got into the media.
Yeah, and let me say this: even though he will be focused on rebuilding um, the program at UNC. I do not see him like completely stopping his appearances in the media. That being on the or the Manning cast or whatever type of you know NFL media he does. I still think that there'll be some of it, but I don't think that there's going to be as much because rebuilding a college program and rebuilding a NFL program, they're two different things. I know that there
For
are a
sure.
lot of I know that there are starting to be a lot of similarities with the NIL stuff and salary cap and all that stuff, but college rebuilding a program is a year-round thing.
Hmm.
It's crazy. Um, but I mean, good luck, Belichick, and I'm pretty sure that all the NFL people are happy that they don't have to deal or have to face you because if you joined the right team, you would kick most of the NFL's ass. Um, so I mean, I think that's going to be our podcast for you guys. We hope you enjoyed and enjoy your pain-free Sunday of Bears football. It is kind of sad that we will have to go through that sadness on a Monday when we are already sad. It's the beginning of the work/school week. We will see you in the middle of the week to give you guys the post-game podcast and the pre-game podcast for the Bears versus Lions, which actually, Jack, you are going to with your dad, so that'll be exciting.
Very fun.
I'll ask. We'll get into that next week because I don't want to, ask you now. What are you looking forward to? But this is Grant Winsauer and
Jack Rody.
of the Bear Clawcast signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed, everyone.
Have a good day, everybody.